Welcome back. You would have seen yesterday the International Relations and Cooperation Minister, Ronald Lamola, saying that for our soldiers to withdraw from the DRC now would be worse than a surrender, would also leave them vulnerable to an ambush. He was speaking during the parliamentary debate yesterday about the presence of SANDF troops as part of what are supposed to be peacekeeping missions in the area around Goma in the DRC. They've been under attack by M23. M23 is sponsored by Rwanda. As you know, the Rwandan President Paul Kagame has even appeared to threaten our President Cyril Ramaphosa on this issue. The Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Alvin, joins us now to talk more about this. Deputy Minister, thank you for your time. Good morning. We know our soldiers, it appears, are basically trapped in their base. They don't have proper food and water. They're surrounded by M23 soldiers or rebels who control that area. What options do our soldiers realistically have at this point?
Well, thank you very much, Stephen. Obviously, let me just emphasize this is a peace operation sanctioned by SADC. So the South African troop contingency are part of troop contributing countries as per mandate of the SADC summit to ensure the sovereign and territorial integrity of the Democratic Republic of Congo is actually affirmed and upheld. So that is the first issue that I thought we must emphasize. Secondly, our troops, premise on the outcomes of the joint summit between the East African community and SADC, have certain principles underpinned. Firstly, there is an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. Secondly, humanitarian assistance, including the repatriation of deceased and injured soldiers, should obviously be upheld. Thirdly, it's about ensuring the opening of your main supply lines and the Goma International Airport.
So, I mean, I accept all of that, and that's what's been agreed to at the summit over the weekend. But isn't the problem that the Rwandan President Paul Kagame effectively, and I think we need to be honest about this, effectively controls the situation from a military point of view? And to sort of look at what we can do from there, and we unfortunately have to accept that fact.
Stephen, our soldiers are in the country of Patrice Lumumba, as led by current President Felix Tshisekedi. That is the head of state. We have the express authority from the head of state participating in the regional, sub-regional organization in the form of SADC to have our troops on the ground. So I am with Minister Lamola that we are loyal and are honoring our express mandate as a troop contributing countries. We obviously, you would be reconcilable with the fact that peace diplomacy have a number of components attached to it. Central to that, obviously, is engagement, is dialogue, is mediation on what needs to be done to ensure the ongoing security of the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo, but equally so to ensure that the peacekeeping troops becomes a force multiplier to give credence to the ongoing discussions. So that is our unique mandate. We are honoring that mandate. We are loyal to our commitment because ultimately, Stephen, this is about the honoring the flagship program of the African Union, which speaks about silences of the guns.
Sure.
And I know President Kagame with President Ramaphosa had been in engagements. There has been engagements with the AU champion on peace and reconciliation, the Angolan President Laurentio. There has been engagements with the DRC head of state. So I am confident ultimately that the subsequent engagements that have been undertaken would bring about a peace diplomacy.
Okay, I mean, I want you to be right. I want to believe all of that. But I mean, and we sometimes forget, you talk about a force multiplier, protecting the border of the DRC and all of that. And all of that's entirely legitimate. I would add to that, though, that perhaps the most important thing our soldiers are there for is to protect the civilians and the human rights of the people who live in that area. And from the reports that I've seen, you will know more than I do on this, M23 soldiers are killing, and I saw one report over the weekend, raping in mass numbers people who live in that area. And our soldiers have a duty to stop that. The problem is that at the moment, as I understand it, they can't leave their base to do that. So they're basically stuck in their base. I mean, they're not able to really do anything is the problem.
Look, Stephen, I would obviously not want to go into the detail, given the fact that it is an active operation currently. But let me be unequivocal that South African troops on the ground are well equipped. It's probably some of the best in the world that are currently part of the peacekeeping deployment. South Africans and the further state should evidently, appreciate that type of effect. We have laid down lives of our soldiers to ensure that innocent civilians, women and children, gets to be protected. That is a noble intent, and we are not sitting there being hostage to the M23 rebel movement. So that narrative is absolutely not correct. We are there, obviously, as a fortress in relation to ensure the maiming and killing of innocent civilians does not actually take place. And we will uphold that mandate whilst the leaders politically engage on peace negotiations and bring about ultimately a cessation of hostilities, Stephen.
Okay. If we can move to the other, I'm a journalist, so I'll say it. You work in a diplomatic place, so you can't say it. But the other headache you have to deal with is around the President Donald Trump in the United States and the comments that he's been making, the threats that he's been making as well. We heard the President last week. He's going to be sending a team of people to go and basically speak to people in Washington about this. My concern, and I hope I'm wrong here, but my concern is that I don't think the US President Donald Trump or the people around him are going to change their minds. I think that they have a domestic political constituency that they're playing to, and this is about race in many ways. Do you think that this team that we're going to send is going to be able to make a difference?
Look, Stephen, let me first just mention, today it's 35 years since the release of South Africa's preeminent freedom fighter, who ultimately became the first democratic president of South Africa in the form of Nelson Mandela. And you would recall all of us being captivated where Nelson Mandela said, South Africans are obligated to work together to make this country a success. So our central topology, firstly, is that there should be absolute unity of purpose on what needs to be done domestically in relation to, our foreign policy perspective, which is a principal foreign policy perspective. However, we are obviously not naive that the negative narrative as perpetuated by some state actors, in particular AfriForum, have created a fortified view within key members of the U.S. current administration that there is an alienation of a particular, not even a particular race group, but a particular national ethnic group in South Africa in relation to property rights, in relation to language, in relation to economic disenfranchisement, which I think all of us know it's obviously not a a correct issue. The Freedom Charter implores on us that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, both black and white, where there's unity in diversity as a South African nation. So our expectation obviously is to respond with agility to the call made by President Ramaphosa in relation to a number of diplomatic envoys and ministerial delegations that should engage the new U.S. administration. But I expect, without having to give a formal communique to non-state actors, in particular AfriForum, that it poses a particular obligation on them, Stephen, to go back to the United States of America and correct the wrong narrative that they have presented and which today have become part of, U.S. South African policy. So they have a unique obligation because you know as well as I know that if you look at AGOA, the key beneficiary of AGOA is the agricultural sector. The key beneficiary of the agricultural sector is the leadership role that commercial farmers have played. And unfortunately, or fortunately, Stephen, you get the commercial farmers, majority of who happens to be Afrikaners in this country, who stands to lose, everything because of the threats imposed on the termination of AGOA, not by a failure of the South African government's efforts, but because of a narrative that AfriForum, which ostensibly or presumably have assumed the ownership of presenting a white Afrikaner national interest. So there is obviously a dilemma, and that dilemma must be resolved by AfriForum. It must be resolved by the commercial agricultural community. But obviously, government remains open with dialogue to support any initiative to undo the damage, which has not been as a result of government negligence, but because of this narrow national, very racist narrative that has been embedded in the U.S. administration because of the work that AfriForum has done.